Lately, something feels different when certain people walk into a room. No announcements, no displays, yet you instantly sense wealth, even if you can't explain why. Picture a private dining room or a high end hotel restaurant. One person at the table talks nonstop about a new Lamborghini, a recent yacht charter, a diamond covered watch. Logos everywhere. Phone face up on the table. Every story feels carefully chosen to impress. A few seats away, someone else orders calmly, maybe a simple steak and a glass of wine they've clearly had before. No logos, no explanations, a plain jacket that fits perfectly. They check their phone once, then put it away. They don't dominate the conversation yet. People naturally drift toward them. The difference isn't money. It's not brands. It's not how much was spent. Loud signals usually come from people still trying to prove something. Quiet ones come from people who don't need to. Think of wealth like sound. Most people turn the volume up hoping to be heard. Real wealth turns it down until only the right ears pick it up. I'm Alex. Today we'll walk through the subtle signals of quiet luxury. You don't need all of them. If you understand just a handful, it can permanently change how you think about money status and why chasing visible wealth so often leads in the wrong direction. Because this isn't about buying expensive things or copying appearances. It's about recognizing patterns. And once you do, you stop wasting money trying to look rich and start seeing how real wealth actually works beneath the surface. Time ownership as the ultimate signal. Watch how truly wealthy people move through a normal day. They don't rush, not in airports, not in meetings, not even in restaurants. That calm pace isn't personality, it's structure. When someone controls their time, urgency disappears. Meetings start when they arrive, not the other way around. Travel doesn't involve sprinting between terminals because flexibility is built into the system. Missed flights are inconveniences, not disasters. That alone quietly separates outcomes. Here's the contrast most people miss. High earners often live fast. Tight schedules, back-to-back calls, lunch eaten at a desk. Even with money, their time is still rented. The calendar owns them. Time ownership shows up in small, observable ways. Long pauses before answering questions. No checking the phone every 2 minutes. Leaving early or late without explanation. Meals stretched out, not optimized. These aren't habits you copy. They're side effects of leverage. And the uncomfortable part, you can't fake this signal. Buying a watch doesn't slow your day. A luxury car doesn't give you margin. Only financial structures that remove dependence on hourly output do that. That's why time is the final luxury. Money buys options. Assets buy distance. But time real control over it only shows up after everything else is already working. Once you see that the rest of the signals start to make more sense. Behavior in everyday situations. Watch how people with real wealth behave in ordinary places. Restaurants, airports, hotels. The signals show up where money usually creates stress. At a restaurant, they don't scan prices like they're doing math. No hovering over the menu. No asking what's worth it. They order what fits the moment, sometimes the usual, sometimes the chef's recommendation, and move on. The bill isn't ignored out of arrogance. It's irrelevant because the system already works. Notice how this contrasts with high earners who are still fragile. Good income, constant optimization, calculating upgrades, checking totals, asking if something is too much. Same table, very different posture. Travel exposes this even more. Truly wealthy people don't pack their schedule tight. Connections are loose. Delays don't trigger panic. Missed flights become quiet adjustments, not emotional events. That calm isn't confidence training, it's margin. Even small behaviors matter. They don't rush conversations. They don't interrupt to prove a point. They're comfortable with silence. When something goes wrong, they don't explain themselves. They adjust and keep moving. Here's the part most people overlook. These behaviors aren't manners. They're outputs. When money stops being a daily decision, your body language changes automatically. And once you see that difference in the wild, you start noticing it everywhere. Speaking in financial code. Listen closely to how truly wealthy people talk about money. Not what they say, but what they avoid saying. They don't announce raises. They don't brag about numbers. You'll never hear them explain how expensive something was. Instead, the language shifts. We had a liquidity event. We restructured ownership. Cash flow improved. Same reality, completely different framing. That language isn't about sounding smart. It reflects how money actually enters their lives. Income isn't tied to hours or effort anymore, so the words change with the structure. When money comes from equity exits or assets, you stop counting paychecks. Notice the contrast with high earners who still live in salary mode. They talk in amounts, monthly numbers, bonuses, cost justifications. Even success is described defensively, like it needs validation. Here's a subtle signal most people miss. Wealthy people rarely ask what something costs not because it's cheap, but because cost is no longer the decision maker. Value, friction, and time matter more. If price needs discussion, the decision is already leaning no, and there's an unspoken rule. If someone explains how much something costs, they're signaling they still feel the weight of it. Real wealth doesn't explain. It assumes understanding or stays silent. Once you hear that difference, conversations sound very different. Assets over consumption. Watch where real money goes when no one is watching. It rarely goes into things that lose value the moment they're used. Quiet wealth shows up in ownership, not upgrades. Instead of chasing the newest car, money flows into real estate in places where capital already clusters. Instead of impulse luxury, it moves into art land or businesses that quietly appreciate over time. The purchases don't look exciting, but they age well. Here's the contrast that matters. Loud wealth buys toys to signal arrival. Quiet wealth buys assets to extend distance. One creates attention, the other creates options. You see this in small decisions too. A high-end watch isn't bought to impress a room. It's chosen because it holds value across decades. A piece of art isn't decoration, it's a portable store of wealth. Even vacations are structured differently, often tied to places they already own or frequent for years. The micro shift most people miss is the time horizon. Consumption is about now, assets are about later. When someone consistently chooses things that get more valuable while they sleep, they're telling you how they see the future. And once assets start paying for lifestyle spending, stops feeling like risk. That's when wealth goes quiet, because it no longer needs to announce itself. Low-key vehicles with high cost. Look at what truly wealthy people drive, and you might miss it completely. That's the point. The car blends in, no bright colors, no aggressive styling, just something clean, capable, and quietly expensive. Think of a high-end SUV that looks normal in traffic, but costs well into six figures. Or a performance car that only reveals itself once the road opens up. This isn't about taste. It's about friction. Flashy cars attract attention, questions, and assumptions. Quiet vehicles move through the world without interruption. They park anywhere. They don't invite conversations. They don't need explanations. Contrast that with loud wealth. The supercar that announces itself 2 blocks away. The constant phone photos. The stress of where to park, who's watching, and what it signals. Same money spent, completely different experience. Here's a detail people overlook. Some of the wealthiest individuals don't even own the car personally. It's held by a company driven by a chauffeur, or rotated as needed. Ownership becomes abstract. Function stays concrete. When vehicles stop being identity statements and start being tools, that's a signal. The goal isn't to be seen arriving, it's to arrive without being noticed and leave without delay. Minimalist but extremely valuable homes. Step inside a truly wealthy home, and the first thing you notice is what's missing. No clutter, no oversized decor trying to impress. The space feels calm, intentional, almost quiet. These homes aren't filled quickly. They're built slowly. Furniture is often custom-made because standard pieces don't quite fit the space or the purpose. Cabinets aren't from showrooms. Lighting is designed for how the room is actually used, not how it photographs. Everything has a reason for being there. Here's the contrast that matters. Loud wealth builds big and fills fast. Large rooms loud finishes gold accents and constant upgrades. Quiet wealth curates. Fewer objects, higher quality, long timelines. Privacy is another signal. Truly wealthy homeowners don't want their houses seen online or featured in magazines. Many properties are bought quietly, sometimes historic, sometimes intentionally hidden. The value isn't in attention, it's in control. Even the layout tells a story. Spaces are designed for comfort, not hosting, for living, not showcasing. When a home feels more like a private gallery than a display, you're looking at money that doesn't need validation. That kind of value doesn't shout, it settles in. Understated watches as wealth signals. Look at the watches worn by people with long money, and you'll notice something strange. They don't try to impress anyone in the room. No oversized cases, no diamonds, no weight pulling the wrist down. Just clean lines, thin profiles, and designs that haven't changed much in decades. To most people, it looks ordinary. To the right person, it says everything. This is where quiet wealth separates itself. Flashy watches aim for attention. Understated watches aim for recognition from a very small group. Brands that hold value, history, and scarcity, not hype. The kind of pieces you don't buy at a mall or replace every few years. Here's the contrast. Loud wealth buys watches to be seen. Quiet wealth buys watches to keep. Some of these pieces quietly outperform traditional investments over long periods, but that's almost secondary. The real signal is patience. Another detail most people miss: these watches are rarely discussed. No wrist flicks, no price talk. If someone notices, it's acknowledged with a nod and nothing more. When a watch stops being a flex and becomes a quiet marker of taste, time horizon, and restraint, you're no longer looking at income. You're looking at accumulated judgment. Plain appearance, expensive quality. At first glance, it looks almost boring. Neutral colors, simple cuts, nothing loud. And that's exactly why it works. Truly wealthy people don't dress to be noticed by everyone. They dress to disappear into quality. A plain cashmere sweater that costs more than a month's rent. A white shirt made from Italian cotton so soft, it doesn't wrinkle the way normal fabric does. No logos, no seasonal trends, no urgency to update. Here's the contrast most people miss. Loud money stacks brands. Quiet money stacks materials. One is trying to signal arrival, the other assumes it already happened. Fit matters more than fashion. Clothes are tailored quietly, often repeatedly until nothing pulls or bunches. Shoes are clean, understated, and worn for years, not rotated for novelty. Even casual outfits look intentional, not accidental. And there's a hidden advantage here. When your clothes don't scream status, you move freely. No one makes assumptions. No one watches closely. You blend into first-class private clubs or ordinary streets the same way. That's the trick. Expensive quality doesn't draw attention, it removes friction. And once you understand that the idea of dressing loud starts to feel unnecessary, even inefficient. Scent and effortless presence. You often notice it only after they've passed by. Not strong, not sweet, just controlled. A scent that feels expensive without trying to be memorable. Truly wealthy people don't chase fragrance trends. They wear scents that sit close to the skin and last quietly for hours. Nothing announces itself across the room. The goal isn't attention, it's familiarity. The kind that makes people think I've smelled this before without knowing where. Here's the contrast. Loud wealth uses fragrance the way it uses logos. Too much, too obvious, too fast. Quiet wealth treats scent like punctuation. One small detail in a much larger sentence. This ties into something deeper: effortlessness. You won't see constant adjustments, no fixing collars, no checking mirrors. Clothes scent posture, they're already settled. When appearance stops needing maintenance, presence becomes calm by default. There's a reason this matters. People associate ease with authority. When someone looks comfortable in their own space, physically and socially, others assume stability behind it. And here's the part most people overlook. You can't rush into this signal. It only works when nothing else is asking for attention. When money stops demanding proof, presence does the talking for you. Physical maintenance as a wealth indicator. Look closely and you'll notice something most people ignore. The wealthiest individuals rarely look done. They look maintained. Teeth are straight white and natural, not overly perfect. Skin is clear and healthy without heavy correction. Hair looks consistent year after year. None of it feels dramatic. And that's the point. These results come from long-term care, not quick fixes. Here's the contrast. Loud money often overcorrects. Extreme veneers. Aggressive cosmetic changes. Sudden transformations that signal urgency. Quiet wealth invests early, consistently, and invisibly. Orthodontics handled young. Dermatology is treated as maintenance, not repair. This kind of care compounds. Small regular interventions prevent big expensive problems later, just like money. And just like money, it requires access, patience, and a long time horizon. Another subtle signal: routine. Appointments are planned far in advance. Nothing is reactive. Health is treated like infrastructure, not vanity. Most people think wealth shows up in what you buy. In reality, it shows up in what you never have to fix. When someone's appearance looks stable across decades, you're not seeing genetics or luck. You're seeing systems quietly working in the background. Key takeaways. Quiet luxury isn't a checklist of things to buy. It's the byproduct of systems that remove urgency from daily life. When money stops being reactive, behavior changes first, long before appearance does. Time slows down. Decisions simplify. Explanations disappear. Across every signal, the pattern is the same. Loud wealth tries to prove. Quiet wealth tries to reduce friction. One optimizes for attention. The other optimizes for control. Whether it's how someone moves, speaks dresses, or maintains their health. The common thread is long-term thinking paired with restraint. What looks effortless from the outside is usually the result of early decisions, compounding quietly over years. That's why these signals are hard to fake. They're not habits you copy, they're outcomes you inherit from structure. Once you start seeing wealth this way, the goal shifts. Not to look rich, but to build a life that no longer needs to explain itself.